America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I'm coming to you live on Tuesday. Usually I come to you on Thursday, but I'm going to give you a special hit on the new transphobia. It's different than the old transphobia. The old transphobia is, these trans men are going to come get your daughters. They're predators. They're really pretending to be women so that they can peep on them in the bathrooms and sexually assault them under the guise of identifying as a woman. That's the old transphobia. The old transphobia also includes, these are just opportunistic trans men who want to beat your daughter in her sports, and they want to take over all of the carve-outs that women have won as women and should get as women so that women can excel as women. They want to cheat. And so that's the old transphobia. So you should be transphobic because trans men are really just men who want to eat off of the gains or the protections or take advantage. They're really just predators, right? That's the old transphobia. The new transphobia is a little bit different. It's actually markedly different. And I say this because I just watched a video of Trump suggest it, and I know DeSantis is going to go this way. So you're going to hear this transphobia a lot in the GOP general election in 2024, but I want to give you kind of a theoretical understanding of it first. The new transphobia is not transphobia, trans men, or predators. The new transphobia is Democrats are so incompetent, they're going to convince your son to want to be a daughter. I'll say this again. The new transphobia isn't trans men and trans women are predators. The new transphobia is Democrats are so incompetent and careless and bad at everything with regard to family that they're going to try by mistake or on purpose, it doesn't really matter, it's still a functionally pain in the butt, they're going to try to turn your son into your daughter. And they're going to convince your son or your daughter that it's your choice. It's their choice. All right, so that now your son or daughter is going to come home from whatever institution is run by Democrats, and your son's going to harangue you about wanting to get a change to become trans, right? Because Democrats are so careless that they're going to market transitioning to your child, and your child is going to come home and ask you, as a matter of their choice, to change gender. Now, mind you, your child may or may not know how to read. Your child may or may not know how to do math. Your child may or may not know geography. Your child may or may not know important dates or figures in history. But all the Dems really care about is that your child knows the right gender pronouns and knows to harass you about wanting to change. And mind you, the Democrats are going to call you a bigot if you want to keep your child as they naturally came into the world, to be gendered adequate to without any artificial chemical enhancements. So that's going to be the argument. And notice this argument actually gets around demonizing the trans people themselves. The trans people are victims. They're children. It'll be demonizing the Democrats who are so careless in their policy that they're going to market the trans lifestyle to your child, right? So remember, we went from trans people being predators to trans people being victims of careless Democratic governance. And this is going to work because Democrats are careless. We saw their carelessness, they mixed carelessness with authoritarianism. We saw that with COVID, right? They're the ones who closed your schools when it turns out that they weren't really thinking about, they were in their own ideology, and maybe your schools didn't become closed, and maybe it would have been better had your kid gone through 2 years of schooling. Or we tried a little bit harder to make schooling work. I mean, like I said, this worked out for my kids because they just came home and I homeschooled them for 2 years. So now they're markedly ahead of everyone who did Zoom school for 2 years. Not just because I'm a pretty good teacher, but because I didn't fall for it and I just took them out, right? I didn't fall for the illusion of Zoom school that the Democrats shoved down people's throat, right? So it's going to be about Dem carelessness. And this is going to work because, there's a way in which a lot of gender discourse shouldn't be talked about in school insofar as it's very complicated, and it's also the purview of the family, because what's at stake is family lineages, grandkids. What's at stake isn't just the concern of the public. What's at stake is the concern of the family, right? So habituating, like teaching the nuts and bolts of that should come down to the parents. That's where parental discretion. Now, if they're, and so I'm going to do another show on Thursday. I'm doing this show on Tuesday because I want to do another show on Thursday where I explain to you why I'm not as liberal as you think I am. I don't want to liberalize families. I don't want to liberalize workplaces. I want to strengthen families and unionize workplaces. But you have to do that through illiberal means. The same reason I don't want to liberalize soccer by letting everyone use their hands. You liberalize these institutions, you kill what virtue is in the institution. Right. So I'm not one to liberalize families. I'm not one to liberalize workplaces. I'm one to actually unionize workplaces and uphold families, because there are peculiar ways of being free that can only come in through these institutional forms. I'll go into on Thursday, but what I'm talking about right now is the new transphobia that's going to be marketed by the GOP, because they have an argument against democratic carelessness in governance. And the stakes of that carelessness is going to fall disproportionately on the poor. And they're going to say, and this is where there's going to be a slight class valence to this argument, they're going to say, look, poor people, you don't control your institutions. Let's stop pretending you do. You don't control your institutions. Rich people do. And if Dems are in control, rich Dems are going to take their control of your institutions and fill your kid full of all this nonsense that you don't have the resources to combat. You don't have the resources to combat on a macro level, and you don't have the resources, and they're going to put a Trojan horse in your kid, and then the kid's going to bring that home, and now you're going to screw up your whole family life with their kind of choice liberalism. And the worst thing you could teach a kid is that their choice matters above all authority. Part of what it is to be a child is to accept given authority, and then you could talk. You can talk against it, and then I'm a little bit Catholic about this. You teach kids please and thank you, and then afterwards you teach them what please and thank you means, and then they wrestle with it as they grow up. But you don't start with, well, you can say please and thank you if you feel like it or if you want to. No, you make them abide by the rules, and then as they grow up, it's not a matter of choice. As they grow up, they can wrestle with it and see if they want to actually be publicly grateful for the world that the public creates for them, right? So liberalism will say, well, they shouldn't have to smile, they shouldn't have to say please and thank you, they shouldn't have to do anything they don't want to. And I'll say, like, no, my kids don't even pick what they eat, right? So of course they're going to do what I say, and it's my job as a parent to actually think through the content before I make them do it, and not make them do it because that's what happens to be the way it is, but because it can be independently justified. And I can explain to them the independent justification, but I'm also going to make them do what I ask them to do through threats if necessary, right? And so one reason why you don't want liberals, there are a few reasons why you don't want liberals talking to kids about gender in any really specific way, is they even screw up the cis het genders. Like, I don't want these white women talking to my girls about what it means to be a girl, because these white women are useless. They're useless, and I don't want my daughters to be useless. So I don't. They even screw up gendering among the cis crowd because womanhood has problems, as does manhood. So like, they should just teach my kids things that they can't screw up, right? Like, and I'll say this again: this isn't me not trusting teachers to teach my kids about gender. Isn't transphobic as much as I don't think they get gender right at all in the content, right? So like, I want my daughters to be, if you're going to raise my daughters like anything, go ahead and raise them like boys. Because at least we expect boys to grow up to be responsible. in a way that we don't expect white girls to be. We expect white girls to do good at school, but then fundamentally not have any real responsibilities after that. We can play like we do, but we don't. And then we can say like, well, we expect them to be mothers and parents and wives, and that takes responsibility, except we don't hold mothers accountable for the product. So like, it'd be one thing if like, okay, we expect, you know, white women to be mothers, but then hold them accountable for the quality of children that they birth, but we don't even hold them hold them accountable for the quality of children that they rear. So we just pretty much, if you treat people like white women, you expect them to do well in school and then take no accountability for anything else they do in their life. And that's not how I want you to teach my daughter. So I do not want you to gender my daughter as a girl. I do not want that. That's a problem. Like, that's a problem. I definitely don't want you to gender my son as a girl, because if you do that, you're teaching my son to be ridiculous. So it's got less to do with a transphobia, my aversion to teachers being stuck on gender in K through 6th grade or 5th grade or whatever. It has less to do with being transphobic and more to do with they just get gender wrong. And they get it wrong in kind of a particular way, and people say like, oh, you're just misogynistic. And I say like, well, I don't like womanhood. I'm not a particular fan of manhood either, because I think they've all kind of been washed through colonialism to be part of a racial project. But I definitely don't want, I don't want you teaching any of my kids to be girls. Like, so if that's misogynistic, I don't want you teaching any of my kids what it means to be a girl. And I don't really want you teaching any of my kids what it is to be a boy or a man either, because all your kids are autistic for some reason. Mostly you're bad parenting. They're on the spectrum, but really you don't know how to teach boys emotional regulation. And so now you call them autistic. And so like, the whites aren't very good parents. And for a lot of reasons, the liberal whites aren't very good parents. The conservative whites are bad parents in different ways. The liberal whites aren't very good parents in these kind of predictable ways. And I don't want them talking to my kids about gender, because they have blind spots, right? And so one of the reasons why, we don't want teachers talking to kids about genders is that we're not honest about how easy and how comfortable and how much nicer we are to girls, right? So you're giving this kindergarten, first grade, second grade kid a choice about what gender to be, and then have a world for them where everyone is just nicer to girls. You can't be surprised if given choice, they're going to choose what's nice. It's the same reason why, if given a choice, my kids choose ice cream for dinner, right? And then they're going to go home and say like, well, I want to be a girl. And now you are in the oppressive position of having to say like, no, we can make that decision when you're 18. But first, I'm actually going to like help you manage the responsibility of being a man in this society and what that means. And then 15 years down the road, we can talk about any gender transitions. But you just deciding you want to be a girl, it might just be because you look around and can sense that, life's pretty easy for girls. There's less at stake and less responsibility. Teachers are nicer to you. All the teachers themselves are women. Like, people expect less of you, and all you have to do is kind of do superficial, be cute. And you don't have to actually know or do anything except like be kind of good at school in this very generic way. And so, that's going to be very attractive to some boys who just kind of don't want the responsibilities of having to be, a grown-up ever, right? Because we infantilize women, especially white women. We infantilize them, and that's going to be attractive. So since we're not honest about the perks of womanhood, we're going to market womanhood to these K through 5th graders, and then be surprised when they choose girlhood or womanhood, and then call the parents oppressors if the parents fight back against that, right? And if you vote for the GOP, you could just get rid of all of that and whatever problems you have with the Republican Party, we're not going to turn your sons into daughters, and we're not going to turn your daughters to hate. We're not going to turn your daughters into people who hate men and are going to divorce their husbands. Right. So that's going to be the new kind of transphobia that that is going to be trumpeted in the GOP, and it's going to be a grain of truth because it doesn't actually target the person going through the transition. It's going to target the Dem politicians who feel comfortable blindly liberalizing gender in ways that are irresponsible and take that kind of culturation out of the hands of parents. I'm not saying parents do the best job in all ways, but I do think that parents have a stake in this that, you know, the public doesn't, insofar as the public school teachers can screw up your kid and then, you know, leave. The parents have to deal with that kid for the rest of their life and the complications that the ideology has put into the kids for the rest of their life. And it would be one thing if teachers were competent. So if teachers had kind of competent gender conceptions, it would be one thing, but that's not what the Democrats offer. The Democrats offer the quality of carelessness that closed your schools and told you it wasn't going to be a big deal to put your kid on Zoom school. The Democrats offer a carelessness in governance that's going to screw up your family, and then they're going to not be and leave you holding the bag, and not the bag in a good way. The bag is in like the responsibility for making it right. They're going to. These are the Democrats who liberalize divorce laws and then are surprised that there are so many like single parent households that aren't doing so well and are failing in almost all meaningful demographics categories, right? So that's the new kind of transphobia that the GOP is going to offer. It's not going to be targeted at the trans people themselves. It's going to be targeted at the Democratic political class that will market transitioning to vulnerable minds. And you have to understand that there's been a kind of a 200-year plan on cutting black men's nuts off. We don't talk about how lynching also came with a ritual castration. And castrating's been a part of the racial strategy, like in the colonial strategy, for as long as there's been a fascination with black nuts. They used to pickle them after the castration and then like sell them, and like there was a whole thing, right? So one of the kind of political innovations of liberalism is that they get you to control yourself and internalize controls that used to have to be externally put upon you. So, you know, black people, I'm just saying, be suspicious of anyone of any phenomena that ends up with black men's balls getting cut off, whether it's being castrated by a white lynch mob or black men advocating to castrate themselves, because that's the innovation of liberalism. It gets you to choose your own oppression and then make it a matter of choice. We wanted to break up the black family, so we used to harass and terrorize the black family. Now we break up, and then 40 years ago, we broke up the black family by just marketing divorce to black women, right? So, and like being casual about divorce. So if the project is to cut black men's nuts off, who's doing the cutting almost is irrelevant. Whether we can get black boys to cut their own nuts off, or whether it's a mob that cuts off their own nuts. So there's going to be a kernel of truth in the GOP's new transphobia insofar as it targets Democratic carelessness. This could all go away if Democrats actually had a robust family plan that wasn't just liberalizing families, but actually was consequent when supporting families. If Democrats actually supported, you know, the conventional lifestyles of, you know, poor and working class men, which means secured good jobs. And so being a man wasn't so like such an onerous prospect that like being a woman looks easier. And you could say that like, well, you know, there's so much trans violence. Yeah, there is. But I also know no small number of conservative trans women who transitioned into a variety of womanhood that I actually think should be abolished, that I'm not a big fan of. It's that they wanted to be the useless white woman, right? So they transitioned into being, they as a gender aspiration, that useless white woman. There's actually a nice article on Carmela Soprano. If you put trans and Carmela Soprano, it's about this woman who actually wanted to transition into becoming Carmela Soprano. It's a nice article. Maybe I'll put it in the discussion. But anyway, I just want to be clear. The old transphobia is trans people are predators. The new transphobia is that Democrats are careless. They're going to market to your kids a trans lifestyle. And you, since you're poor, are not going to have the resources to fight their marketing. And now they're going to turn you and demonize you because you're just the one who says that you don't want your 6-year-old to have injections and that it should all wait. All of this discussion should wait a decade. Right? Thank you for your time. Hope this was enlightening. By the way, nobody pays me to do the kind of, the quality of political insight that you just got for the last 20 minutes. Liberals don't like it. The conservatives don't like it. And I'm going to need you to scoot on over to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50, and also send this video around to all the people a month for me to kind of keep doing what I'm doing, because I want to give you the quality of insight that will help you make sense of your political moment. And that's what I'm doing in a way. I'm anticipating the arguments, and I've heard both Trump and DeSantis go down this road. So this is going to be the argument. This is going to be the argument that Dems are so careless, they are going to market to your children a trans lifestyle that then you are going to have to make your home life so much more complicated than it has to be and make you the bad guy. So if you don't want that, go ahead and vote for the GOP. That's going to be the GOP argument, that the Dems are going to market chemical changes to your son or daughter's, natural makeup, given makeup. And that's now going to be your problem because you don't have the resources to stop them. And that's going to be the argument. And it's not the worst argument, because Dems are careless. They are careless with respect to family issues, and they're careless. And we saw that carelessness with like the divorce rhetoric that like kind of washed through the nation from the 70s through the 90s, right? So thank you for your time. I will see you on Thursday talking about something completely different. It's actually going to be a show on why I'm not a liberal in all of these different institutions. But thanks. Peace.